Hi everyone, welcome to Live Magic with Lauren M. This is week 5, video 4 of my series. So this week the topic is singing. You guys had tons of questions to ask and it's wonderful. I'm so excited to answer all of these. I'm gonna jump right into the questions just because there were a lot of them and I feel like I can talk about singing forever. So I'm just gonna grab my paper and then we'll just jump right into it. First question that I got was, what was my specific voice type? So my voice type is that I'm a mezzo-soprano, so that means that I'm that belter. The musical theater songs, a lot of them are mezzo-soprano songs, so that's my range. I'm not really a soprano, I can't really hit those super high notes, but sometimes I have been an alto. When I was in choir, I used to go all over the place. I can sing pretty low, but I can't hit those super duper high notes, but I'm also a huge belter. I love to belt, and those mixed tones high up there, and we'll talk about that a little later. So I'm a mezzo-soprano. That helps with most of the princesses songs. Most of the princesses are mezzo-sopranos and sopranos, so I think my range fits pretty well with a lot of their songs, so I'm lucky with that. The next question was, how did I start singing? So I started singing, pretty much ever since I was born. I got my voice from my mom. My mom doesn't really sing in public very often, but our singing voices sound very, very similar. So ever since I was little, I used to sing karaoke and sing around the house and everything like that, but I was terrified of performing. There's actually a story from when I was in 3rd grade and I was in this huge school choir performance and I actually pretended to be sick because I didn't want to perform, which is really funny, since now I go out and I sing in front of hundreds of people all the time. But yeah, so I started singing when I was really, really little, but not until I was in 8th grade did I decide to try out for a musical. And then I also started taking voice lessons. So I started taking voice lessons pretty late in life. I haven't been taking them forever at all. But yeah, I started in 8th grade, and then in high school, I was in all of the musicals, I was in the top choirs, I was in a jazz ensemble, I was in a quartet, I was in a ton of singing things. That's kind of when I actually started doing all of that. And I was involved with a couple competitions and won some money too, so that was pretty cool. So my main singing career, I would say, was in high school. Once I went to college, I was an acting major, so I didn't really focus on singing very much. I did take some voice lessons through college. And then since I've graduated, I still take some here and there now, but I definitely think that doing the princess job and going and singing every weekend really is what's helping my voice. Being able to sing consistently on an everyday basis and practice on the weekends and sing some hard songs that aren't necessarily in my range has definitely been the best for me, simply because I'm not singing all day every day like I felt like I was in high school, but I'm singing often enough to keep my voice up. And definitely singing the same song over and over again really helps you learn which parts of your voice work best in certain circumstances, so you're able to mend your voice to make sure that they can cover those songs that you sing a lot. Okay, going kind of along with that, I had the question of how often do I practice? So I really do sing every day. I'm alone a lot of the time with my dogs, and I sing a lot. So I sing in my house a lot, just random songs. My voice definitely fits Broadway songs best, so I like to belt it out with some of the big Broadway tunes. But then I also, of course, like some pop songs and the Disney songs as well. But yeah, I practice singing in my house every day. Now, when it comes to specifically practicing for my princess performances, I pretty much only practice those maybe twice a week. Do I take the time to sit and sing through all the princess songs just to like keep my voice warmed up, make sure. I know that women's voices change consistently, I think till they're about 30, so practicing every day all the time, at least every week, really will help you realize which part of your voices are maturing and which ones are going down, which parts are going up and stuff like that. So I like singing often just to see, especially those days where my voice sounds terrible when I'm talking. I like to sing on those days just to see how I can fix my voice on those days where it's not the best, in order to make sure that when I do have those days and I'm a princess, I'm able to fix my voice a little bit the day of. And then I also always warm up before an event. Somebody asked the question of warming up later, so I'll talk a little bit about that later. But before every party, every event that I have to sing, even sometimes when I don't have to sing at the event, I always sing through the song at least once. Not only does that help with the memorization, but it also will show you on that specific day how your voice is working on that song. So factors such as what you've eaten that day, how much sleep you got, how much you've drank that day really affects how your voice performs. So if you warm it up right before you're about to go and sing that song, you can hear how your voice is going to sound on certain notes, how loud you have to be, how much support you're going to have. So practicing the song right before you perform it is essential just to see how your voice is working that day, just to make sure that you can do the best possible in front of the audience. So the other question was, which song do I like singing the most and which song do I like singing the least? So I assume I'm just going to go along and pretend that this was just a princess question, so I'll just answer that based on princess songs. So the songs I like singing the most are Let It Go, Touch the Sky, When Will My Life Begin, and Part of Your World. So Part of Your World is one of my favorite songs ever. So I just love singing that one. However, that one really depends on the day, how great I sound on it. When I'm on a microphone and I can belt it out and I can be loud, I think is when I sound the best on that one. So sometimes when I sing that song and it's in an intimate party, I don't sound the best because I don't want to scream my face off in front of these kids. So that one really depends on how my voice is doing. When Will My Life Begin? I just really like the really soft, airy voice that Mandy Moore does for Rapunzel. So that's pretty easy for me to do even when my voice is crap. Even when it is completely terrible, I can do that raspiness really easily. So I love singing that song all the time. And then Let It Go and Touch the Sky are both big belty numbers, which, like I said, I'm a mezzo-soprano, so those two fit my voice the best. Even though I can't belt all the notes on Let It Go all the time, I still love singing that one just because it fits my wheelhouse, and I've sang it so much in my life that I've learned how to do it so that no matter what quality my voice is that day, I know exactly how I need to sing that song. That one's just kind of in my muscle memory that I can just do it no matter what day it is. So then the least favorite songs to sing are Once Upon a Dream and Whistle While You Work, simply because they're just so freaking high. Like I said, I'm not a soprano. I can't hit those super duper high notes. I can fake them, but that's not very healthy for your voice, and it doesn't always sound very good. So I definitely don't like singing those as much. And then A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes. I just don't like that one just because it's kind of boring. It's a super easy song for me. It's kind of in my speaking range, so I don't really prefer singing that one because it's not really a challenge. And I guess the kids don't really like that one as much either because it's really slow. Do any songs strain your voice more than others? So like I said, I kind of have a muscle memory for Let It Go now, but I haven't always had that. So when I first started doing parties, I was Elsa all the time. I started in 2014, which is the year after Frozen came out. So the Elsa and Anna fever was very, very high. And so I was Elsa all the time. And when I first started singing, I remember there were some parties that I would try to sing it and belt those high notes, and they just would not come out. They would not sound very good. Sometimes I would even ask my Anna to sing it along with me just because I didn't like the way I was sounding. But it's gotten to the point now that I've sung that song so many times that I know exactly where each note falls in my voice, whether it's a mix, whether it's a head voice, whether it's my chest voice. So that one, it used to strain my voice a lot simply because of how high it is and how it goes from high to low so often. But at this point, I know how to sing that song pretty well. So that one doesn't strain my voice anymore, but I know that a lot of people were asking me about Let It Go, so I could talk about Let It Go a little bit more later. And then another song that strains my voice is Once Upon a Dream, just because the original voice actor for Aurora was an opera singer, and I am not that. So she sings very high classical notes, and I just do not have those notes in my wheelhouse. So like I said, I can try to fake them a little bit, but they don't always come out sounding very good, and then my throat usually hurts after the party, which also is not good. So then another question I got was, how do you find and refine your own style for these songs? So one thing that you can definitely do, I personally don't like taking my own style for these songs, simply because when I am playing that character, I would assume that character would sing that song the same every time. So I don't try to take my own take on these songs, especially when I'm singing them at parties. However, when I'm practicing them, sometimes I like to add stuff. So one thing that you can do is you can add notes or riffs in. So when you're holding a note really long, you can just add some notes in there. I know some people do that for How Far I'll Go. They'll add that, one day I'll know. I know people add that in a little bit. So finding little times like that where you can hold it and you can kind of change the riffs and kind of change the notes up, you can definitely try to do that. And I know some people for Let It Go, they say, and heaven knows I've tried. Some people go up like that because they can't hit the really low note. So you can try doing different things like that so you can figure out what fits your voice. And then on top of that, you can also try to look for the song in other keys. Somebody definitely asked later about if you can sing the songs in lower keys, and I think that you definitely can. I'll talk about that a little later, but if you go on YouTube and you can just search the song and just type lower key, higher key, whatever fits your voice. Don't strain your voice. It's not good. And honestly, the kids won't know if you're changing the key, and if you end up singing it different, like some of the covers by Alessia Cara or Demi Lovato, they did their covers of their songs and they changed it up. Even if you wanted to do one of those, I'm sure the kids would still love it as long as they're the same words. Going off of that, somebody asked what karaoke tracks I use at my party. So every party that I go to, I bring a character assistant with. So they're there to kind of hold everything for me, manage the time and everything like that. So one thing that they also do is they play the music for me. So they bring their phone with, we bring a Bluetooth speaker with, and they hide the Bluetooth speaker somewhere near me, usually on the chair, on the ground, or something like that. And they play that music. So we never lip sync to tracks for my company. We always sing live, and we always sing with a karaoke track. So in order to make sure that it's the exact same one as the movie, I always try to find the one that says Disney on it. So there's a Disney karaoke series, and that's always the one that I use if it's available. Some things like the Belle Reprise or Whistle While You Work are not part of that. So you really have to just keep looking on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, everywhere that you possibly can, and just listen to the track all the way through, and the closest one possible is always the one that I pick. But then again, you also have to make sure to be looking for ones that are in the original key if you are more familiar with the original key. So what you can do is you can take the original key, the one with the words next to it, and you can play it next to that karaoke track and try to play it at the same time and try to see if it's in the original key. Sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out if it's in the original key until you start singing it and you realize it's a lot higher than what you're used to. But if you just keep that same one on your phone, like I said, the Disney karaoke series track, they have a bunch of albums with a bunch of Disney songs on it, and I use that for most of my songs. I don't know how that works with copyright with companies. I know that you can't advertise that your character is going to sing a Disney song. So if you just say that they just do a live performance, and then once you're there, you can do that live performance. But yeah, I usually just use the one that says Disney on it simply because I know that that's going to be the exact same track as the movie. Okay, and then I said I was going to be talking about this, so best way to warm up your voice. So one thing that I do before I perform is I warm up in the car. So most of the time I just sing the song a whole way through. I just do it from start to finish, A, to make sure that my assistant / manager has the right karaoke track for me, and then B, also to hear what my voice sounds like that day. So I said, like, eating certain things, drinking certain things are really going to change the way your voice feel. Things like dairy and milk actually add a lot of mucus to your voice, so that's going to affect the way you sing, so try to avoid dairy before you sing. And then also acidic foods can also change the way your vocal cords work and move, so you always want to drink water, and ice water is actually not good for your voice. I always drink ice water. I hate non-ice water. But for those of you who are having trouble with your voice one day, lukewarm or room temperature water is the best thing for your voice, or even hot water. Obviously you don't want to burn your voice, your vocal cords, but warm water or hot water is really good for your voice, as well as some tea if you want to look up different teas and stuff like that. I used to drink throat coat all the time. I didn't really notice a difference, but I heard that it's supposed to make a difference, so maybe there was. There are also some vocal and throat sprays that you can get. I know one of my performers has a throat spray that she sprays in her mouth every time before she sings. And then another one of my performers, Chicago Princess Bella, she actually sucks on lollipops that are supposed to be good for your voice too. So finding those different things, especially days that you're sick and your voice is not cooperating, watch what you eat and then do those things. And then another thing that you can do is warm-ups. So you can do, you can go through the scales, like the do, re, mi, fa, sol. Like you go through the scales if you want to look it up online. And then you can also do some little lip trills. So you just buzz your lips. And you want to go all the way up and all the way down, as far up as you can, as far down as you can. That way you can make sure to warm up all of the range of your voice, especially if you're singing a super high song that you're not used to singing. If you start and try to sing that high note for the first time in front of a group of people, it might not sound the best. So warming up your voice is very good. Although most of the time, what the range of voice that we go through on an everyday basis, just talking to one another, actually warms up your voice better than you think. So if you're doing an early morning party, definitely do some lip trills, definitely go through some scales. And you can look up online different ways that you can warm up with different notes. I don't have a piano, so I can't really help you right now, but they definitely have ones on YouTube to warm up. But if you're doing a late night party where you've been just talking normally throughout the day, not straining your voice by screaming or anything like that, your voice will be pretty warmed up already. And then just watch what you eat and drink and stuff like that as well. Okay, so these next set of questions are specifically about helping people sing who don't know how to sing as well. So the first question was, how do you flip from your chest voice to your head voice? So a lot of these questions are super hard to answer on a broad basis simply because it really depends person to person, but I'm going to try to answer them as much as possible that can help out everyone. So chest to head voice, everybody has a chest voice and everybody has a head voice for different people that don't know that. And there's a certain level in your voice where it will switch. So there's a certain note that is the max that you're going to be able to belt, which will be your chest voice, and then it switches over into your head voice, which are those higher tones. So then there's also a mix that you can have, which is kind of a mixture of both, which is definitely the most healthy. It's not very healthy to belt, especially trying not to belt at the note that you can, like maximum or above that. So it's definitely more healthy to add that mixed tone in there, but you definitely need to help find your switch. So if you're singing, you want to hold your chest and you want to try to belt out different notes, just working up the scale, and then find that note which you think is the maximum that you can hit in your chest voice, and do not try to go above that. A lot of the times if your voice is cracking, it's because you're trying to belt a note that just is not in your chest voice and you need to switch over. So one thing that you can do to save your voice is just make sure not to belt in your chest voice if your voice can't hit that note. And then another thing that can help switch is just going into your head voice even earlier than you think you can. So I know that for Let It Go, the very high note, the let the storm rage on, I can't belt that high note, so I don't belt the few notes before that. So the whole notes before that, I do it all in my head voice. So all of that is my head voice. Let the storm rage on. I sing all of that in my head voice just because if I were to try to switch from my chest to my head, I might crack because my voice might try to hit that high note in my chest voice. So you definitely need to try and find where your switch is, what your maximum chest belty note is, and try not to go above that. And then like I said, if you're trying to hit a note in your head voice, try to switch to your head voice before that. Normally the phrase, you want to take the whole phrase and you want to do that all in the same section so your voice isn't switching all over the place, because then you'll start cracking if you're trying to hit a note that you can't. So then the next question was, how do you deal with a good mix with a shaky top? So the answer to most of these questions is I'm going to say breath support. Breath support is a huge thing. A lot of the times when we're doing these parties, we're wearing these super tight corsets, which is not great for breath support. So I would very highly encourage you to not make your corset as tight as possible when you're singing, because you need your diaphragm to expand, because when you're singing, your diaphragm bounces and it sends that sound up and it sends your breath up. So the main thing is if your voice is cracking or your voice is really shaky, it's because you don't have enough breath support. So your breath is going through and your vocal cords are shaking because the breath isn't steady. There's not a stream of breath going through and air going through the whole time, so it's shaking because the breath is going in and out. So definitely if you're not breathing well enough while you're singing, your voice is definitely going to be shaking. You're going to crack, you're going to do all those things because your voice just isn't getting the proper needs it has in order to sing. So definitely sitting up straight, standing up is definitely ideal. Putting your feet shoulder width apart, like I said, sitting up straight and not having a super tight corset. It allows your diaphragm to expand so that when you breathe in, before you sing, it bounces up and it goes through your vocal cords, and your vocal cords aren't shaking as much. Well, when you're singing, your vocal cords are shaking the whole time, but you want it to be shaking at a steady pace the whole time, because if it starts shaking a little less, then that's when you hear that shakiness in your voice and you can start cracking. So I would definitely say breath support is the number one thing. Yeah, so then the next question was how to keep your head voice steady without cracking. And like I said, breath support. Then the other thing that you need to know is if your voice is cracking, it's because you're not giving it the proper tools to sing. And that could possibly mean that you're trying to hit a note that your voice just can't do. All of our bodies have limits, and everybody's body has different limits. And that's both physically, mentally, all of that. So especially when it comes to your voice, not everyone can hit every note. And that's just the nature of it. And it stinks that you can't always sing your favorite songs. I know I can't sing a lot of Mariah Carey songs because I don't have whistle tones. So you have to figure out the limits of your own voice. And I like trying to figure out those limits in my own house so I don't embarrass myself in front of people. Find those songs that fit your voice the best and figure out why the other songs aren't. Maybe you don't have a high soprano sound like I do, or maybe you can't hit those super low notes just because your voice doesn't have it. So like I said, you can edit those songs a little bit, so make those super low notes go up a little bit, make the really high notes go down a little bit, and so you can fit all of the songs into the right voice, your voice part, because like I said, everybody's different, and if you're hitting a note and your voice is cracking consistently, it's probably just because your voice just can't handle it, and your voice just can't sing that song, so you can just figure out a way to edit it to yourself. How to stretch your range to get better at your chest voice. So I know that the biggest problem for me is I hold myself back. So don't hold yourself back. There are many times that I've been in voice lessons and I've told my voice teacher I can't belt that note, I just can't do it, and they're like, yes you can, you've hit this note before. The reason you're not is because you don't trust yourself. So one thing that I know I do all the time is right before I'm about to hit a high note, my voice kind of clenches a little bit, and because it clenches like that, I don't allow myself to let it all out. So the one thing you have to do is you just have to trust yourself, and sometimes it can be scary that you're in front of a crowd and you're screaming this note out, or it feels like you're screaming this note out, but sometimes on the outside it sounds a lot better to us than it does to you. So you just have to trust that you sound good, and you have to trust yourself. If you hold yourself back, you don't give yourself the breath support, you don't trust yourself to hit those notes, you're not going to hit those notes. So like I said, practicing in the comfort of your own home, in your car, stuff like that, practice those high notes. If you don't hit it, play the song over, try to hit it again. Just keep working on those notes over and over, and like I said, if you can't get it ever, then it's probably just because your voice can't hit it, and it's just because that's the maximum that your voice can reach, which is fine, because then you can just edit the song. But yeah, just don't hold yourself back, because I'm sure if you just keep trying and working at it, you'll be able to do a lot more than you think you will. One thing that you can also do is one thing I do, I can't really show you sitting down. If you're singing a note that has a really high note, put your hands on your waist so you can feel your diaphragm expand as you breathe in, and then when you hit that high note, just drop your knees a little bit, and that'll cause you to physically push the air up more to hit those higher notes, but it'll also kind of give you a distraction, so that way when you're singing and you're hitting those high notes and you're bouncing up, but you're actually bouncing down when you sing the song up, it kind of forces your air to go back up, and then it also kind of causes a distraction, so you're not thinking about the fact that, oh, I'm about to hit this really high note that I don't know if I can hit. So like I said, just stand with your feet shoulder width apart, put your hands on your hips, and when you're about to hit that high note, like I'm going to do Let It Go, for example, let the storm rage on, and when you bounce down, it pushes the air back up, and it causes you to think of something else to do almost, so you're not worried too much about it. You don't have to do this while you're performing, but practicing, because then the more you do it when you practice, the more your body will get used to hitting that note, and the more you'll start trusting that note as well. What are some tips to gain confidence singing in front of others? I just said practice a lot. Record yourself all the time, listen to yourself over and over, ask your friends to listen to the recording and give you notes. The more people that you have listening and telling you how to fix stuff, the more confident you're going to be that you can fix those things. I know that I used to be terrified singing in front of people. When I first met Chicago Princess Sarah, I remember we were in the middle of a conversation and she started singing Part of Your World as an example for me, kind of how I I've been singing throughout this video a little bit here and there. And I was like, oh my gosh, she just sang in front of me. Because to me it was such a foreign concept to sing in front of people when I wasn't performing. But doing these princess parties and singing with people in this little room this close to a kid has made me more confident in myself, simply because in those moments I can't be afraid. When you're sitting there and you have all these eyes on you, you don't even have a microphone, you're not on a stage, they're seeing everything that you're doing, and you just have to do it. So practicing in front of yourself, in the mirror, just looking in the mirror, being more confident in yourself, looking around and practicing with your friends, everything like that, recording yourself is definitely going to help gain that confidence, especially when you have to go to a party, or if you're just even in a show on stage as well. I know that it's just practice over and over again. Everyone's going to be nervous at first, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be with it, and the more you're going to trust your voice to just do what it has to do when you go on stage in front of people. How do you save your voice while still going to social events? So one of these, I actually, when I was in Beauty and the Beast in high school, my voice was going away by the end of it. I wasn't singing very healthily. I was kind of screaming all the belty notes, so I definitely wasn't singing healthy. My voice started going away. So that last cast party that I went to before the final show, I was very careful about my voice. So whispering, do not whisper. I'm sure most of you have heard that before. Whispering is actually worse for your voice than talking full out. But if your voice is going away, just don't talk. Just drink warm water, drink tea. Don't talk, don't drink dairy, don't eat or drink dairy. Just don't talk, don't sing, don't do anything. And then right before you perform, then you can warm up, then you can sing to see how your voice sounds. One thing that you can do if you're ever going to like a concert or something, if you're ever going to scream for any reason in real life, just sing a high note instead of screaming. This I learned when I was in acting school. If you're ever in a concert and you're super excited to see your band, instead of screaming and being like, ah, you can just scream and go, ah. Just hit a high note and you can scream. You're gonna sound silly to yourself, but if you're in that kind of position where everyone is screaming, then healthily singing a high note is just gonna add to the crowd. It's gonna make you excited, but it's also gonna be very healthy. And then the other thing is you have to drink healthy. So like I said, don't drink dairy. Soda's not very good. Anything with bubbles, alcohol's not good. So just drinking that water, drinking tea, that's definitely gonna help. How do you start training your voice for beginners? The first thing you want to do is you want to figure out what voice part you are so that you're singing the correct songs. And you can do this by looking at a piano. There are piano apps, hitting a note and trying to copy that note in your head. And you can do that all the way to the bottom and all the way to the top. Figure out what your range is and only sing songs within that range. If you're sitting there trying to hit Mariah Carey's high notes, you're not going to be able to do it, and it's going to really injure your voice while you're trying to do that. And it's actually going to diminish what range you have. So just figure out what your range you have from the beginning, stick to songs within that range, and that'll definitely help you out. And then just keep practicing over and over. Like I said, record yourself singing, send it to your friends, send it to me. I would be very welcome to tell you what you could be doing wrong, what you're doing right, different ways to do that. And then also add some emotion and acting to it. I know there have been many times that I've gone to see shows and I absolutely do not think that the lead has a good voice at all. But I don't even care because they're such a great performer. If you're going to a party and you're acting as Ariel, for say, and you're singing Part of Your World, it doesn't matter if you're singing well, but if you're acting like Ariel, you're pretending like you're in the water, you're doing the mermaid hands, you're smiling, you're moving around, even if you don't have a good voice, the kids are going to love you. The parents are going to love you. A lot of it is that confidence, and that acting ability with it as well will definitely make you seem like you're a better singer even if you're not. We talked about this a little earlier, but someone asked, is it okay to sing deeper than the actual princesses if you can't sing as high as them? And I said yes, and I said you can find the right key for yourself online. So like I said, figuring out your voice range on a piano or piano app will help you see what exact range you can find, and then you can look up sheet music online for that song. And if you go on YouTube, you can usually look up like Part of Your World lower key, Part of Your World higher key, and stuff like that, and just find the right one. I know that there was a girl that worked for my company who used a lower key for Let It Go because she couldn't hit those super high notes, and the kids never noticed because the kids don't know those keys and stuff like that. So finding the right key that fits you, it's better to sing a lower key and sing all the notes right than it is to sing that really high key and you can't hit the notes all the way. Obviously you don't want to be like super low and super deep, but they probably don't have an instrumental for that low anyway. So just find what range works for you and what key works for you and just sing it in that one. And even if you can't find one, just sing it a cappella if you really can't hit those notes. Or you can sing along with the track, and then when you hit those high notes, just don't hit those notes, because that'll definitely ruin your voice in the future if you try to keep hitting notes that aren't good for you. So somebody said, how do I sing Let It Go's high note? So I just said, don't be afraid of it and use breath support. So like I said, using that breath support is definitely going to help. That's just the best way to sing in general, is you just need really good breath support. And then also, you also just can't be afraid of it. You have to just imagine that you can do it, keep working, keep practicing at it. If your voice can't hit it, then maybe you can figure out a way to lower it, sing a lower note that's still in the same key. Or you can just let the kids do it. I know that sometimes at parties the kids are like super loud at singing, so I'll be like, let the storm rage. And I just like let them sing it because the parents usually want to hear them sing it anyway. But one thing I would say is definitely try using it in your head voice. Don't try belting it out. Not many people can hit that note belting it. Even Idina Menzel has sang that song multiple times and has not hit that note. And it's just making her voice worse by trying to hit that note. So instead of trying to belt it from down here, use your head voice. Even if you have to make yourself sound like a soprano and an opera singer, let the storm rage on. Even if you have to do that in order to get it out, just do it. Do whatever is the most healthy for your voice, and a lot of the times singing more legit in those soprano tones is more healthy than belting. Belting really isn't good for you. Even a healthy belter can't do it all day, every day. A lot of the times it is a mixed tone, and you have to work quite a while to get your mixed tone. I know that I've been singing, like I said, since I was in 8th grade, and I didn't really get my mixed tone until last year. So it's a lot of work to try to figure that out, but if you just keep trying to scream it instead of sing it, that's just going to ruin your voice, and you're just going to lower your range for possibly being able to sing it in the future. So just try singing it in that soprano tone, use your breath support, and trust yourself. The next question was, do I think anyone can sing well? I say yes, with some exceptions. So I think that some people, they're just tone deaf, and that's not me making fun of them. It's just some people physically are tone deaf, and they can't hear the difference between a note that you're playing on the piano and the note that you're singing. So if that is you, then you probably won't be able to get yourself to sing exactly like the characters, because in that way you haven't been thinking of, you're not able to understand what note your voice needs to hit. But if you can hear a note and you can understand that this note is higher than this note, then you'll be able to sing. I tell my boyfriend all the time that he would be a great singer if he just worked at it, because he has a great range. A lot of people, I mean, when we're talking, we're moving our voice up and down. Learning different languages is almost like singing, because they have different speech patterns and different stuff like that. Using an accent is almost like singing, because they have the different tones and the different patterns thrown in there. We're practicing with our voices every single day of our lives when we're talking. So if you just keep listening to songs, if you're able to teach your voice that this is how I make this note, then you're going to be able to start learning how to sing. And some people just don't know that. They don't know how to make their voice make this note. But if you sit there and you just start really low and just start going, ooh, and then you can start hearing in your throat exactly what notes you're hitting in that time, then you can follow along with the keyboard, and then you can start singing along with a soundtrack as well. So yes, I think with a lot of work, most people should be able to sing. Find a local person that can teach voice lessons. Send me a video of you singing and I can give you some tips. Send videos to other people singing so they can give you tips, and that'll definitely help you out in the long run. So the last two questions I had are more about speaking. I'm thinking of doing another video just on how to talk like a princess and asking Snow Merida to join me, because she has great character voices. So I was thinking about doing another one, but I'll answer these questions now just in case they aren't able to ask me for the speaking video that I'm going to do, especially because I don't know when that's going to happen. So I will go back now and I will start looking at any questions that you guys might have had for me. Okay, could you explain the difference between chest voice and mixed voice and how to know when you're singing in each? So this is really difficult. I'm not a voice teacher by any way, shape, or form. I've taken voice lessons for probably about 10 years, I think, of my life. Wow, that's a lot. That's a long time. But I've taken voice lessons for about 10 years, and most of it, I mean, through the voice lesson is just them telling me how to do things. So it's not them telling me how to tell other people how to do things, so it's mostly just finding yourself. So chest voice is when it's completely in your chest. So the way that you're talking, you always talk in a chest voice. And so that's the way that you talk now. So when you're talking in your head voice, it's really high. And when you're talking, you can feel it almost like in your brain. It's like really high up here, and it's more in your nose, and it's more in, like, I feel it in my forehead. Everybody feels it in different places. But then the chest voice is kind of like a mixture of the two. You can't really talk in it. It's hard to describe how you feel, but chest voice almost sounds like a belt, but it's healthier. So a lot of the times when I sing Let It Go, I keep using that as an example. So in the chest voice, it would be like, let the storm rage on. But then a mix would be, let the storm rage on. So it almost sounds like I'm belting. It's not completely up here. It's not completely down here. For me, it almost feels like the note is coming from down here, but my head is kind of perfecting it. Whereas the chest, you're kind of just letting the sound come out, and there's not as much control to it. I like my mixed tone the best simply because I feel like I have more control with it. But practicing at home and noticing when you're no longer singing in your chest, but you're not complete in your head yet. So in your head would be like those really high notes, those operatic notes. But yeah, it's mostly personal. Everybody has a different chest, head, mix, voice, and range. So just singing that at home and feeling where everything comes from. Like what I said, when you're talking, you feel it here. So if you hold your hand here and you sing a song, you'll be able to tell when you leave because you won't feel it resonating in your chest anymore. You'll start losing that. So then you feel it resonating in your head. And it's mostly just where you resonate it. Some people resonate in their nose, some people resonate in their throats and stuff like that. So it's mostly just paying attention to your own body and doing those scales. And while you're singing those scales, think about where all of the sound is coming from. I know this probably only applies to Elsa, but how do you use your chest voice belt? I know it's not good to do all the time, but I can never find the right way to belt and make it sound good. Like I said, belting is not the healthiest thing to do, even if you're doing it super healthy. I know that there are some people on Broadway that used to belt all the time and now they can't anymore just because it really takes a strain on your voice. So I would definitely recommend using a mixed tone or your head voice, especially when you're singing songs like Let It Go with such a high range. Like I said, most people can't really sing that the on note in their chest voice in the regular key. So that one I would definitely recommend trying to sing in the more soprano-y, opera-y note. But I guess up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun. The higher notes in Part of Your World too, you can probably do a mix with. That one is probably low enough that you should be able to belt it. I know that I belt that one every once in a while. But in order to belt, you do have to be pretty loud and you have to have lots of breath support. So like I said, I normally don't belt full out if I'm at a birthday party when I'm super close to the kids, because then I would be screaming in their faces. Because in order to belt more properly, you have to be standing up, you have to have that good stance, you have to have that good breath support, and you also have, that causes you to be pretty loud. So most of the time I would recommend if you're in a close, intimate birthday party that's really quiet and everyone's just paying attention to you, I would definitely try to recommend doing more of a mixed tone, where if you're at a big venue, you're trying to get people to hear you, you're on a microphone, then you can kind of let it go a little bit more, and you can just trust your belt to be there a little bit healthier. For someone who can hold a pitch well, do you think it's okay to sing a cappella or to singing with the track and make it more magical? I would definitely recommend singing with a track. I don't think I've ever sang a cappella before. Every time that I've sang a cappella, it's because the track kind of goes away, but there's just something magical about the kids' faces when the music starts out of nowhere and they're like, what? Because they almost feel like they're transformed in the movie, whereas when a princess just randomly starts singing, even though that's kind of how she does it in the movie, it doesn't make sense as much for them to just be singing a cappella, since in the movie there is the track. If you absolutely cannot sing with the track and you don't know how to hit the notes in there, then you can try to sing a cappella, but even the most trained professional people can get off key, can get off track if they're not singing a cappella, especially because most of the princess songs have interludes of no singing. So in your head you kind of have to like sing that part of the song, and then the kids are kind of looking at you like, what's going on? Like I said, one time the music to Let It Go let out, so that whole section in the middle of the like that whole part in my head, I was like playing it to know what key I'll be in when I start up again, and the kids are just like, okay, Elsa. So yeah, I would definitely recommend using a track. when your performers sing wind and sky, do they make a Scottish accent? Touch the sky. Yes, I figured you meant touch the sky. Yes, so I always do that. It's every once in a while, it's hard to tell if you're doing the accent, so if you can't figure out how to do the accent, I'm sure you could skip it and you couldn't tell. But I know that in the accent, because you have to roll your R's, and that's the biggest part. So, when the cold winds are calling and the sky is clear and bright. So like those times that you have to roll your R's a little bit, or calling or bright and stuff like that. The Scottish accent is definitely more wide. So if you just sing with your mouth wider like you're doing a smile, I think that just kind of adds to it sometimes. But yeah, the rolled R's is definitely the biggest part. But yeah, I definitely use a Scottish accent when I sing that song. Thank you guys so much for joining me. So next week, I'm going to have Chicago Princess Sarah join me. So she's going to be joining me and talking more about singing. I know I answered a lot of your questions now, but you guys can ask her questions about her specific voice. While I'm a mezzo-soprano, she's more of a soprano, so she can sing more of those legit high notes. And her mom is a voice teacher, so she's been getting voice lessons ever since she was like born. So she's definitely more knowledgeable on singing and taking care of your voice and singing properly and stuff like that. Like I said, when it comes to singing, it's really a person by person basis. So if you guys want to send me a video of you singing, I can give you some tips, I can give you some notes. I've actually done that to a couple people on here already. They've sent me videos of themselves. I love giving tips. Of course, I'll give constructive criticism. I'm not going to tear you apart. I'm going to give you the good things too. But I love doing that kind of stuff. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I had so much fun yet again. I hope to see you guys all next week, and have a great night. Bye guys.